It was a typical Friday afternoon at Meadow Creek Elementary. Or at least it should have been. The final bell rang at exactly 3:12 p.m., setting loose a wave of squeaky sneakers, bubbling laughter, and the chaotic ballet of minivans crawling along the curb. Parents leaned out of car windows waving. Crossing guards swapped weather updates. The sun filtered lazily through maple trees lining the pickup zone, casting long shadows on the pavement. Lucy Carter, age 7, sat quietly on the school steps, pink glitter sneakers perfectly still, her sparkly unicorn backpack resting against her knees. She was small, thoughtful, and often a little quieter than other kids. But that Friday her stillness meant something else. She was waiting for her mom, as always. Emma Carter was a pediatric nurse, and traffic on I-25 was a daily nemesis. Lucy didn't mind. She usually counted red cars or hummed the theme song from her favorite cartoon. Today, though, her fingers didn't move. Her lips were pressed tight. Her eyes were watching, because someone else was watching her. He didn't come running or yelling like the other parents. He didn't even seem like a parent at all. An older man in a charcoal pea coat strolled up to the school gates with the calm confidence of someone who belonged. Except he didn't. He had graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a face that looked like it had practiced smiling in a mirror. The moment he spotted Lucy, his expression warmed. "Lucy," he called out gently. "Sweetheart, come here." But Lucy didn't move. She narrowed her eyes. The man stepped closer, smile unwavering. "It's Grandpa, honey. Don't you remember me?" It was then that something shifted. Blitz, the retired K-9 who had been dozing beside Officer Deanna Rodriguez as part of the school's Pause and Peace therapy program, lifted his head. He didn't bark. Not at first. He simply sat up, eyes locked on the stranger. A growl, low and primal, began to stir deep in his chest. Deanna felt it before she heard it. Blitz didn't growl, not without cause. He was 12 now, semi-retired, trained for years to detect threats before they became headlines. "Easy, Blitz," she said softly, hand on his collar. But Blitz wasn't listening. The man didn't flinch. He kept smiling. "Emma called me. Lucy, she had to stay late at the clinic. I'm just here to help." Several parents paused. A mother nearby stopped mid-sentence, turning toward the unfolding scene. Lucy's lips trembled. Then, in a voice just loud enough to cut through the spring air, she said, "That's not my grandpa." And everything stopped. The laughter, the car doors slamming, the small talk, even the breeze seemed to hush. The man's smile cracked. "I know it's been a while," he started. "No," Lucy cried. "He doesn't smell like cinnamon." "That's not him," Blitz barked. Loud. Twice. And in that instant, with one child's voice and one dog's growl, the illusion shattered. No one knew it yet, but that growl had just opened the door to something much darker than anyone at Meadow Creek could imagine. The silence after Lucy's declaration was broken by Blitz's bark. Sharp, urgent, final. He surged forward, muscles taut beneath his aging frame, dragging Deanna Rodriguez with a force she hadn't felt in years. His hackles rose, his teeth bared, and his stare, fixed unwavering, was aimed straight at the man claiming to be Lucy's grandfather. "Sir, I'm going to need you to back away," Deanna said, voice firm now, instincts kicking in like a switch had been flipped. She stepped between Lucy and the man, hand brushing the edge of her utility belt, muscle memory remembering a badge she no longer wore full-time. "I'm her grandfather," the man insisted, voice growing more animated. "This is absurd. I can show you ID." Lucy backed away, tears running silently down her cheeks. A teacher appeared, wrapping an arm around her, whispering words meant to comfort, but her own eyes betrayed unease. Another staff member discreetly pulled out her phone and began dialing. Deanna never looked away from the man. "She says she doesn't know you," she said. "And Blitz doesn't get confused." The man huffed but didn't run. Instead, he reached into his coat. "Slow," Deanna barked, hand up. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Blitz tensed like a coiled spring, growling louder. The man froze and then carefully pulled out a driver's license and a folded document that looked vaguely official. "See?" he said. "Joseph L. Carter. Her last name is Carter. I'm telling you, I'm her grandfather. I just want to help." Deanna didn't take the papers. She waited, because she knew what Blitz knew. 5 minutes later, a squad car pulled up, lights flashing without sirens. Officer Daniels stepped out, surveyed the tense scene, and moved with calm authority. He separated. The man from the crowd took the documents and called them in. Lucy sat sobbing on the bench now, cradled by her teacher. "He doesn't smell right," she whispered. "Grandpa smells like cinnamon and soap. This man smells like an old wood and metal." Daniels raised an eyebrow at that detail, but it was Blitz who changed everything again. Just as things began to settle, as adults began to murmur reassurances, and the suspect leaned against the cruiser with forced patience, Blitz growled again, but this time, not at the man, at the briefcase. It was black, simple, resting at the man's feet as if forgotten. Blitz's nose was pointed at it, his body still and focused. Deanna followed his gaze. "Sir," she said, turning back, "may I inspect your belongings?" "You've got to be kidding me," the man snapped. "This is harassment." "Consent or warrant," Daniels said. "Your call." With a roll of his eyes and a shrug, the man muttered, "Fine, but you're wasting time. It's just some papers and snacks." Deanna crouched beside the briefcase, Blitz watching her every move. She clicked it open. Inside, a bottle of prescription-grade sedatives, a tightly rolled set of zip ties, and a child's pink baseball cap embroidered with the name Lily. Lucy didn't own a hat like that. But Deanna remembered a name. Lily Jane Foster, a 6-year-old girl from Denver. Blonde, blue-eyed, missing 6 weeks. Daniels's voice changed. Deeper, colder. "Turn around," he said. "Hands behind your back." "What? You can't be serious," Blitz barked. One last time. The sound was final. As the cuffs clicked into place, Lucy clung to, her teacher's leg, her sobs softening. Her fingers found the hem of the woman's coat and held on like it was the only solid thing left in the world. That evening, Blitz didn't go home quietly. The principal fed him steak. The sheriff's department gave him a badge, honorary, gold-plated, and Lucy sat beside him on a wooden bench, fingers tracing the soft fur behind his ears. "You knew," she whispered. "Even when I didn't." Blitz didn't move, didn't need to. He laid his head in her lap, eyelids heavy, tail flicking once in contentment. Back near the curb, the squad car pulled away, carrying Joseph L. Carter, or whoever he truly was, into the growing dusk. The pickup zone now looked more like a crime scene than a schoolyard. Most of the parents had already left. The few who remained spoke in hushed tones. A layer of disbelief clung to the air, like fog that hadn't yet lifted. Blitz, ever alert, sat beside Deanna as she filled out a formal report on her department-issued tablet. His breathing had slowed, but his ears never stopped scanning. Inside the school's front office, Officer Daniels held the now infamous briefcase under a clear evidence bag. Sedatives, zip ties, a floral handkerchief, the pink cap marked Lily. None of it made sense, and yet all of it did. "This isn't just an attempted pickup gone wrong," Deanna said quietly as she stepped into the room. Daniels looked up from his screen. "There's no Joseph L. Carter in the entire state. Not one that matches that photo or ID number." Deanna's brow furrowed. "So, a fake?" Daniels nodded. "A damn good one. Holograms, lamination, probably bought off the dark web." She looked down at the cap again. "That hat doesn't belong to Lucy." "No," Daniels said, "but maybe it belongs to Lily." A chill passed through the room. Outside, Lucy sat under a fleece blanket, her eyes on Blitz, her grip tight on a half-empty box of chocolate milk. "Can I pet him again?" she whispered to her teacher. The woman nodded. Blitz didn't move when Lucy approached. He simply sat, quiet and still, letting her arms wrap around his neck. This time she smiled, small, but real. The hallway outside interview room 2 smelled faintly of coffee and vinyl. Detective Claire Monroe paced slowly, flipping through a preliminary report as the suspect sat cuffed inside. The man looked ordinary. Late 60s, balding. A tired softness in his posture that wouldn't have turned heads at a grocery store. The kind of man who might ask for directions to the bread aisle. But behind that mild exterior, something dangerous was coiled. Monroe had seen it before, not in action, but in aftermaths. The forensics report finally arrived. Monroe scanned the results, her lips tightening with each line. She didn't knock before entering the room. "Your ID says Joseph L. Carter," she said without sitting. "But your fingerprints tell a different story." The man didn't flinch. He looked up, expression unreadable. "Thomas Edward Langston." Monroe continued. "5 known aliases. Your record was sealed for years, but what's visible tells a story." She flipped a page. Attempted child abduction, Illinois, 1998. Dropped for lack of evidence, another case in Oregon, 2011. Again unproven, until now. Langston said nothing, but Monroe wasn't looking for answers yet. She was looking for cracks. "And the cap in your briefcase?" she asked. "Pink embroidered with the name Lily? You know she went missing 6 weeks ago?" Still, silence. But outside the room, Deanna Rodriguez was pacing too. She hadn't sat down since they got back. Blitz was at her side, calmer now, but his nose twitched at every hallway echo. Then her phone buzzed. A message from dispatch. Subject, Thomas E. Langston. Confirmed match to federal watch list. Flagged by Interpol in 2015. Active investigations pending. She showed it to Daniels, who was reviewing the contents of the briefcase one more time. "This guy's been at it for years," Daniels muttered. "And he's good. No paper trail. No credit cards, no home address on record for over a decade." Deanna looked toward the interrogation room. He knew how to blend in. That same hour, at Meadow Creek Elementary, a silver sedan screeched into the staff parking lot. Emma Carter hadn't even turned the engine off before she burst from the car, phone still clutched in her hand, voice raw with panic. "Lucy." She ran toward the bench out front where her daughter sat wrapped in a fleece blanket, holding Blitz's leash. Lucy turned at the sound of her mom's voice and ran. Emma dropped to her knees, arms wide open, catching her daughter like she'd been gone for years, not minutes. "He said he was Grandpa," Lucy whimpered. But he wasn't. Emma looked up at Deanna, who had stepped outside at the sound of screeching tires. "Who was that man?" Emma demanded, her voice quivering between rage and fear. Deanna chose her words carefully, with the kind of kindness police rarely get to use. "We're still confirming everything," she said. "But what we know for sure is your daughter is safe, thanks to Blitz." Emma's eyes fell on the dog. She dropped to her knees again, not for Lucy this time, but for Blitz. She wrapped her arms around him, sobbing quietly. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, the local news led with the story. Retired K-9 prevents alleged kidnapping at Meadow Creek Elementary. Suspect linked to multiple disappearances. Video clips showed Blitz being handed a giant chew bone the size of a baseball bat. Reporters crowded in, snapping photos. One shot showed Emma holding Lucy's hand tightly, tears still in her eyes. "I thought we were just having a normal Friday," she said on camera. "If that dog hadn't been there. If Lucy hadn't spoken up." Her voice trailed off. "I don't want to think about it." Later, back at the station, Monroe reviewed evidence photos. The hat, the gloves, the zip ties. And then she saw the map, a digital one recovered from Langston's phone. School zones marked .color-coded. She looked up. "This wasn't random," she said. "This man didn't just happen to pick Meadow Creek. He had a system." Meanwhile, Blitz lay curled in the back of Deanna's SUV. His eyes were closed, but only barely. He didn't bark anymore, not tonight. But if you watched closely, you could still see his ears twitch at every passing sound. Deanna climbed into the driver's seat, her mind racing. The case wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. "He didn't make mistakes," she whispered, glancing back at Blitz. "He made maps." She stared into the darkness beyond the windshield, and what they'd found so far, Was just one folder, just one man. What if there were others? At 6:37 a.m. the next morning, a small conference room in the Carter County Sheriff's Office looked more like a war room than a police station. Every wall was lined with photographs, maps, sticky notes, and timelines. At the center of the table sat an open laptop, looping muted surveillance footage from the Meadow Creek campus. Every so often, a frame would freeze, the stranger's face, the briefcase, the moment Blitz lunged. Detective Claire Monroe stood with a black coffee in one hand, her other flipping through Langston's phone data. Officer Deanna Rodriguez sat across from her, Blitz at her feet, silent and statue-like. "This guy didn't just show up at Meadow Creek on a whim," Monroe said, her voice tight. "He'd been watching, maybe for days, maybe weeks." She turned the laptop toward Deanna. "These cell tower pings put him near 4 different elementary schools this past month. Always during dismissal hours, always in areas with low crime rates, trusting neighborhoods, schools without full-time resource officers." Deanna nodded. "Classic pattern." Monroe grabbed a marker and began circling school names on a wall-sized map. He blended in. That's the scariest part. No breaking and entering, no white van cliches, just a warm smile, a fake ID, and an empty hand. She tapped on one of the dots. Bayfront Elementary. South of here, coastal town. Not a big school, not a lot of security. We've already contacted them. Their district security chief confirmed. No SRO, part-time crossing guard, and a wide-open pickup zone. Deanna's eyes narrowed. "You think that was next?" "I think it was already in motion," Monroe said grimly. That's when Agent Helen Shaw from the FBI joined the meeting. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We pulled encrypted files off the USB drive found in Langston's suitcase," she said, plugging in her own laptop. "It's worse than we thought. Dozens of folders, each labeled with a different city, each filled with long lens photographs, children at recess, walking home, waiting for rides. None of the children were looking at the camera. None of them seemed to know they were being watched. Each folder had notes, names, physical descriptions, behavior patterns, ratings." Shaw clicked into one labeled Denver. Candidate A. It contained photos of Lily Jane Foster, blonde hair, blue eyes, skipping hopscotch. The date, 1 week before her disappearance. Then she opened another folder. Meadow Creek, Lucy Carter. Deanna felt her chest tighten. There were 7 photos, all from different angles, different days. One of Lucy standing, the school gates waiting. One of her sitting on the curb, legs crossed. One of her walking alone. "It's a catalog," Shaw said softly. He wasn't just watching. He was preparing. Deanna looked at Blitz, who hadn't moved. Then Shaw opened a third folder. Bayfront, option 1. Inside, a photo of a red-haired girl, backpack, ladybug lunchbox, purple folder in hand, handwritten label, Maya. Monroe sucked in a breath. Maya. "Sanderson, 6 years old, lives in Bayfront. We've got a match." Shaw nodded. "She was next, and there's more." She brought up a set of messages extracted from a burner phone found in the second suitcase. 5 texts, all recent, all anonymous. Option 1 confirmed. Backpack matches. Window of opportunity next Thursday. Low risk, same method. No deviation. "Do not engage Carter girl again, too noisy." The room fell into stunned silence. "Too noisy?" Deanna repeated. Shaw nodded grimly. "That's how they refer to Lucy. The child who cried out. The child who listened to her instincts. The child Blitz protected." 3 hours later, Deanna and Blitz were on the road to Bayfront. The ocean fog rolled over the streets like a slow-moving tide. It curled around mailboxes and school fences, softening edges and blurring lines. Bayfront Elementary looked innocent enough. Red brick facade, bright murals, an eagle mascot on the front lawn. But something dark had touched it already. Blitz stepped out of the SUV, paused silent on the damp sidewalk. He moved slowly, methodically, nose twitching at every inch of air. He sniffed around the playground, the fence, the bike racks. Then he stopped. Near the far side of the field under a bush beside the chain-link fence, he growled. Not loud, but low-controlled. Deanna crouched beside him, pushing aside the branches. A banana Laffy Taffy wrapper, a child's sock, pink unicorn print. The tag read, "Property of Maya." Deanna didn't need confirmation. She called it in. The local PD responded quickly. Evidence was bagged. Surveillance footage reviewed. Bayfront had only one camera facing the rear parking lot. The footage showed a white van idling there for 14 minutes the week prior. The plates were stolen. The driver never exited. "That's him," Shaw said on. "Decall later. Same MO, no fingerprints, no face, but the timeline fits. We think he had a partner." That night, Deanna lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucy's face. Then Maya's. She poured coffee at midnight and sat in front of a wall map pinned with every school Langston had flagged. Then she saw Harborview Lutheran School. 8 miles from Bayfront, private. No public cameras. A van had been reported there too. No one followed up. Her blood went cold. She grabbed her jacket and Blitz's leash. The next day, Thursday, 3:15 p.m. Harborview began dismissing students under gray skies and scattered drizzle. SUVs lined up in slow-moving queues. Teachers called names into walkie-talkies. Kids clutched lunchboxes, raincoats, and school projects. Across the street, Deanna waited behind a row of parked cars. Blitz sat beside her. Still, focused, but not on the gate, on the alley. Then he growled and barked once. Deanna turned just in time to see a man in a yellow poncho standing by a dumpster. Not smoking, not using a phone, just watching the children. Deanna moved fast. Blitz moved faster. She unclipped his leash and he surged forward, his body all muscle and mission. The man ran. But Blitz didn't let go. He tackled him at the alley's dead end, teeth clamped gently but firmly on the man's wrist, pinning him in place. Deanna arrived seconds later, cuffs ready. In the man's pocket, a folded list. 3 schools, 3 names, 3 dismissal times. One of them, Maya. Thursday, 3:20 p.m. Inside interrogation room B of the Bayfront Police Department, the man in the yellow poncho sat drenched, his hair slick with sweat despite the air conditioner humming overhead. His name, according to the ID found in his wallet, was Calvin Royce. Miller, age 52, a drifter with no known occupation. Last recorded address, Bakersfield, California. No active warrants, but a colorful resume. Petty theft, trespassing, drug possession. Nothing that screamed child predator. But then again, neither did Thomas Langston. Outside the room, Deanna Rodriguez stood behind the two-way glass. Arms crossed, jaw tight. Beside her, Special Agent Helen Shaw reviewed the preliminary search report from Miller's car. Glove box contents, a burner phone, empty candy wrappers, a second printed list of schools and time slots, including Bayfront and Harborview. He was circling her, Deanna muttered. Just like Langston. Shaw nodded, eyes fixed on the man fidgeting inside. And he didn't expect the dog. Inside the room, Detective Claire Monroe slid a folder across the table toward Miller. "We know who you are," she said evenly. "We know what you were doing outside that school, and we know you weren't alone." Miller rolled his eyes. "Loitering ain't illegal." "You weren't loitering," Monroe said. "You were timing dismissal. You were watching Maya Sanderson. And you were working with Langston." That name, Langston. It made Miller's face twitch. A barely perceptible muscle shift along the jawline. "Never heard of him," he mumbled. Monroe calmly opened the folder. Inside, a map of Bayfront Elementary, a printout of surveillance stills, a copy of the list found in Miller's pocket, with Maya's name circled. Then she laid down the photo of the unicorn sock. "Funny thing, Calvin," she said softly. "Langston had your number saved under a contact name, Rook. Guess that makes you his pawn, huh?" Miller's fingers twitched. "He said it would be clean," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. No screaming, no mess, just in and out. Outside, Shaw's hand tightened around her coffee cup. He just gave us the link. Deanna leaned forward. Langston's the architect, and this guy's the muscle. 30 minutes later, Miller broke. They met online, he said. Encrypted forums, hidden invite links. Langston ran. The tech, I just watched. Took notes, took photos, tracked patterns. Monroe didn't interrupt. She just kept writing. He said to avoid loud ones, kids who talk, kids with routines. Said the quiet ones were safer. Deanna's voice was low but steady in the observation room. How many kids? 4 successful, Miller said. 2 failed. Meadow Creek was a bust. The kids screamed. The dog ruined everything. Was Maya next? We hadn't decided yet. She was on the trial list. We were watching her. Trial list. Monroe asked. Miller nodded slowly. They were rated personality, appearance, risk level. They had a whole scorecard system, even a mailing list. Deanna's stomach turned. Then, finally, Miller looked up. You won't stop it, he said. That afternoon, in a secure mobile command post parked behind the Bayfront Civic Center, the FBI team gathered around a makeshift war board. Shaw stood at the center, pointing to a live laptop feed projected on the wall. The USB drives we recovered weren't just Langston's personal archives, she said. They were compiled, prepared for sharing. Click. A browser window opened. Pavilion Forum. Dark web platform. Password gated. Plain interface, black background, blue text. Tabs across the top. Candidate submissions, collection logs, drop schedules, behavior ratings. One by one, the agents read them. Every name, every city, every file. Maya's name was on the list, so was Lucy's, and 8 more, some already listed, as missing. Others, not yet. Shaw spoke again. This isn't just a one-man operation, it's a network. We're tracking usernames, IP routes, metadata, and Langston wasn't the top. The room fell silent. Deanna stared at the screen, then down at Blitz, who sat beside her like a sentinel. They thought Lucy was too noisy, she said, but that noise saved her. That evening, Deanna visited the Carter home. Emma answered the door, weary but steady. Lucy peeked from behind the hallway, clutching a drawing in crayon. Blitz in a superhero cape. Deanna knelt. He'll love that. Then she turned to Emma. We caught a second man. He was watching Maya, another girl. We believe he was working under Langston. Emma's expression shifted from fear to fury. And Lucy, she asked. She was on their list, Deanna said gently. Their top target that day. Emma paled. He didn't just scare them away. He broke their system. Deanna nodded. Blitz saved her, but he also set off a chain reaction. That night, at the Bayfront County Jail, Calvin Royce Miller was placed on suicide watch after being informed of federal charges: interstate child trafficking, conspiracy to commit abduction, aiding a known fugitive. He didn't smile anymore. Across town, Blitz was honored at a public ceremony. Children and parents filled the civic center. The mayor gave him a bone the size of a baseball bat. Reporters snapped pictures. Children lined up to pet him, but Blitz didn't react to the flashbulbs. He only settled down when Lucy wrapped her arms around him again, as if to say, "This is all I ever wanted, to protect." But in Washington, D.C., Agent Shaw received a new alert. Interpol had flagged a third alias linked to Langston, connected to a missing child in Prague. The network wasn't just national, it was global, and it had not yet been stopped. 6 months later, Blitz sat quietly under the oak tree in Deanna Rodriguez's backyard. The breeze rustled through the branches. Somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower buzzed. But in this small corner of Carter County, all was still. Above the fireplace inside the house, a framed drawing hung proudly. Crayon lines, bright colors. Blitz in a red superhero cape, standing in front of a school building. Beneath the sketch, a handwritten caption read, "He hears what we can't." It had been Lucy's idea. That morning, she and Emma had stopped by with the drawing and a box of thank you cookies. Lucy knelt by Blitz, whispering something only he could hear. Then she kissed his head and left quietly. Blitz didn't bark. He didn't need to. Later that day, Deanna's phone buzzed. It was Shaw. "We found her," the agent said. "Anaka? The girl from Prague." Deanna froze. "She's alive?" "Yes," Shaw said, her voice cracked. "In a safe house. The raid happened last night. A tip inspired by the Pavilion investigation. Czech authorities had flagged the alias and matched the photo. She'd been missing for 3 years. Deanna leaned against the kitchen counter. She looked out the window. Blitz was still there, tail flicking gently as if he already knew. "She was on Langston's list," Shaw continued. "We checked with orphanage records. No birth certificate. No media coverage. Just disappeared." "She didn't just disappear," Deanna whispered. "She was erased." A long silence. Then Shaw added, "They found a postcard in her room. It had a dog on it, big ears, gray muzzle, brown eyes. The bottom read, 'You were never forgotten.'" Deanna didn't respond. Her eyes blurred. That weekend, Blitz was honored. Again. This time at a national ceremony in Washington, D.C. The Capitol Rotunda echoed with camera shutters, polished shoes, and polite applause. Deanna was invited to speak. She didn't talk about arrests or statistics. She talked about trust. "We put trust in badges," she said, "in ID cards, in handshakes and smiles. But sometimes trust is a feeling, a growl, a moment of stillness." She looked down at Blitz beside her, wearing his polished vest. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't worry about being wrong. He just listened. And in doing so, he had protected a child. He had exposed a network, and he had sparked an investigation that would stretch across 3 continents. Back in Prague, Annika stepped into the sunlight outside a trauma recovery center. She didn't smile. Not yet. But in her hand, she held that same postcard, the dog with quiet eyes, a message scrawled in careful handwriting. "You were never forgotten. This story isn't over." Blitz heard what others ignored. Lucy spoke when others stayed silent. But across the world, other names are still waiting to be found. And sometimes it takes just one voice, or one dog, to begin the search, to be continued.